Good afternoon, aloha.
Good afternoon, aloha.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you to the Data Coalition for all that you do. This really is an interesting time to be talking about data, particularly with the news coming from Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Data has become something that worries people, something that can be stolen, misused, or shared with an unfriendly group. But despite the news, and as you all know, we know that data is a powerful tool for good. It helps people in the government, in the private sector, and in our communities to do good things for society. You may have heard about something happening in my home state, a volcanic eruption happening on the Big Island of Hawaii. There are 24 separate fissure vents. Lava is advancing as quickly as 650 yards per hour. And in a single day this past weekend, there were 500 earthquakes near the summit of the volcano. Last night, overnight, the mayor of the Big Island's personal home was destroyed. The actual lava flow represents only 9 square miles out of a 4,000 square mile island, but for the impacted communities, the destruction is nearly total. There are 2 issues that we're especially worried about: air quality and the physical destruction of property. Toxic emissions make it very hard for people to breathe, especially if they have asthma or other respiratory conditions. And lava has destroyed now hundreds of homes, including the home of Harry Kim, our mayor. It's covered miles of roads and thousands of acres of land, and it's flowing into the ocean as we speak. And in affected areas, there's no power, no water, no phone reception. No one is sure when the volcanic activity will end. Even the experts at the U.S. Geological Survey, the volcano experts, don't actually know. But the good news is that there has been no loss of human life. And that is in part due to the officials who have good access to data. Last week, I was in the Emergency Operating Center on the Big Island and saw this firsthand. They have data to measure air quality, data to redirect flight plans, data to track the lava flow. And it's not from a single source, it's from the county, the state government, from federal government, from individuals uploading their own data. Between drones, satellites, sensors, active data collection, and human observation, we actually have a really clear picture of what's happening and almost in real time. Experts from the University of Hawaii at Hilo and the USGS, along with volcanologists, are all involved in the EOC, and these people are very dedicated, determined experts. They're really good at what they do, but what struck me about the data utilization is that this is in Silicon Valley. Hilo town is a great town. It's a thriving town, but it's 45,000 people. It's got a history of sugarcane and pineapple. It's the rainy side of the Big Island. It's not the place with the predominance of tourists. People in the tech community from San Francisco fly to the Kona coast, not to the east side of the Big Island, but because they have access to good data, they are able to save lives. Let me give you an example. The Hawaii Department of Health, County Civil Defense Agency, and EPA have already partnered to expand our ability to monitor air quality all over the island. And now that the National Park Service, USGS, and South Coast Air Quality Management District in California have shared resources, we've nearly doubled the amount of air quality monitoring stations from 19 to 34. All of this data now is standardized, which means we can track what's happening along the fissure area and on other parts of the island in real time. This has real impact because, like I said, you're talking about less than a percentage point of the land on the Big Island, and what you're trying to do is make sure no one gets hurt, but you're also trying to make sure you have continuity of life everywhere else. And so you don't want to evacuate where it's not necessary to evacuate. You don't want to shut down schools where it's not necessary to shut down schools. You don't want to advise people not to fly in and stay at a hotel if it's not entirely necessary. And the better fidelity you have, the more you can be assured that you minimize the economic impact, you minimize the social impact, while being totally confident that everybody is safe. First responders also have access to this data, and I saw them using it in real time, but so does the public. Yesterday, the EPA posted a user-friendly mapping tool online so that people have access to air quality data and can make decisions as they go about their lives. And that's what's possible when federal, state, and local agencies can share data with each other and with the public. It gives people the information that they need to make decisions, whether it's how to respond to a natural disaster or how to do long-term planning for the economy. And we see the importance of data at a federal level. Let me just kind of tell you a personal story. Jim Bridenstine, the administrator of NASA, and I got into it a little bit in his confirmation hearing. And I'm a climate hawk because I'm a data person, because I may not be a scientist, but I'm the son of a principal investigator. And so in exchange, or maybe in penance for not actually being academically accomplished enough to get my PhD in anything, actually anything at all, I have a special reverence for academia. I have a special reverence for science. And so Administrator Bridenstine and I had an exchange about climate in which he basically refused to acknowledge the scientific consensus, even of the agency that he wanted to lead. And so I was very tough on him. And something really interesting happened after his confirmation. Jim Bridenstine had a change of heart. And I am persuaded that what happened was there was just too much data in front of him for him to ignore it. Now that actually speaks to his character as well as the availability of data, because plenty of people are willing to ignore information if it suits their needs or their ideology. But Jim Bridenstine went and decided that he wouldn't have the respect of his subordinates at NASA if he was going to ignore all of the data that they were marshaling. And so he came back to my office, asked for a meeting, and told me, I want to answer that question again. I do believe climate change is real. I do believe the scientific consensus. I believe it is caused by humans. And I said, would you be willing to say that on the record in a hearing? He said, I want to say that in a record in a hearing. And so that is the power of information. It is also the power of taking a political matter and turning it into a question of fact. And that is one of the powers of the Open Government Data Act. That is one of the powers of what all of you do, which is to get decision support for government agencies. And I understand that some of the exciting stuff around open government data is not just for decision support for public policymakers or people in the bureaucracy or people in the community, but also on the private sector side. But I'm particularly interested in making sure our government has access to its own data so that we can integrate data sets and make good choices. And that's why I joined Senator Ben Sass along with Representatives Derek Kilmer and Blake Farenthold, former Representative Blake Farenthold, I think, to introduce the Open Government Data Act. It is a bipartisan bill that requires data to be published online in an open, machine-readable format so that individuals, organizations, and other government agencies can use it. At the most basic level, if a policymaker is deciding on a public health matter, data should play a key role. If a city planner is trying to site a water treatment facility, then he or she should be aware of where the flood zones are. We can think critically about the unintended consequences of providing access to public data, so let's be clear. Anything that is private should remain private. Anything that is secret should remain secret. Anything that is proprietary must remain proprietary. But everything else is the taxpayers' data, and everybody ought to have access to it. We are making a tremendous amount of progress. We're very close to making this bill become a law. It has passed the Senate twice. Unfortunately, that's not really how it works. Passing the Senate twice does not mean, substitute for passing the House once. And a version of this bill has passed the House of Representatives, so we're just a few steps away from the finish line, and I'm confident that with everybody's support, we will get there. What gets measured gets done. And that's what this is all about, sharing data to help people to get things done, whether they're checking the weather from their phone, starting a new business, developing a new app, or trying to figure out how to avoid the damage from a volcano. So I want to thank all of you for, I do this as one of the sort of half a dozen priorities I have this year. A lot of you do this for a living. A lot of you do this as a mission. And I really want to say how appreciative I am of this. This is one of those things where you really are unsung heroes for taxpayers, for the community, to try to live the premise that if the government is collecting information and it is not secret and not private, that data belongs to the taxpayer. And that data and the utilization of that data should be maximized. So thank you for your support for my legislation, and thank you for everything you do. Thanks very much.